Welcome to the Forum on WSMI. I'm your host, Sean Bellent. There is a new school in the mix in this 2024-2025 school year. Litchfield Christian School launched over the late summer, and it serves pre-K through 12th graders and is an offshoot of First Baptist Church. I had a chance to talk with principal and teacher Rebecca Wallner. It's a bold step to create a new school in the 21st century, public, private, or otherwise. How long did this process moved along? When did the light bulb first go on over there at the church?
Well, so Pastor Jason, who is headmaster also of the school, was working on a doctorate of education for the last few years. I'm not sure when he started on that one, and he just graduated last fall. Part of his graduate work was putting together his philosophy of education, and I think it was a project of how you would roll it out if you were actually going to create a school, or if you were going to, want to share with someone your philosophies and what it would look like on the ground level. So he did a presentation here at the church with some church members because it was part of his doctorate program. And so some of us here at the school were part of that. But at that point, I think it was still just a hope in his heart, maybe, or a seed that had been planted. But then after he graduated, he really started talking and saying, I really think this is what the Lord wants us to do. And so after that, then that's when we started visiting. We visited a school up in Chicago that had also started out similar to us, got a vision for what it took to kind of go that direction, and then just started planning after that. So all last summer was a big push of putting together curriculum, putting together schedules, finding students, finding teachers, finding folks to help out.
I can imagine it can be stressful being a part of a first-year experience, but it's also got to be a special experience, making history, so to speak.
Yeah, and that's why I personally have 20-plus years of educational experience of teaching at Lampier High School in Springfield. I did my student teaching there in math, and then I taught that many years there. And then I had come down to Litchfield to take care of my elderly parents that were in their 90s that had moved off the farm and finally needed help, quote unquote, right, in their 90s. But from my background, education's always been it seems as if it's just such a load upon the teachers. Every year there was so much more. And I was always, as a teacher, thinking, I don't know how these new kids do it coming into education. But coming over into this school and having all those years of experience on me, too, it has just been a breeze. Even though I'm teaching subjects that are not my forte, because I'm a math teacher in particular, and I have all the high school subjects, except for a couple of them that Jason, the headmaster, is taking. But the clientele and the mentality here is just so much more positive, and there's just so much we're not dealing with. And then you don't have the bureaucracy of, the higher up, telling you and having the disconnect with the classroom, because we're all in the classroom. We're all engaging with one another all the time. We don't have all the kids get together for what we call a rote time, where they repeat things, and that's a 45-minute period. Then they all get together right before lunch to learn Latin. We're all learning Latin together. And at lunch, we all eat together. And at our tables, we put together like an adult, someone from the high school, someone from the junior high, someone from the middle, the Lillers, the first through thirds, and then a pre-K. So it's kind of a family style around the lunchroom. So there's the discipline is just non-existent to some extent, the need for it, you know what I'm saying? And we cut things off at the pass. We do not allow the slang stuff. We don't allow, we have uniforms, so there's none of that kind of stuff that we're dealing with, weird outfits or, shirts too long, shirts not long enough, that kind of stuff. And the language, we hammered that early on, first and foremost. That's with the slang stuff too, but we've got some codes of conduct that we have here too that talk about, no cliques, no bullying, and we're cutting it off as soon as anything is happening in that direction. Because again, we are so small, we can really set the tone early on, and we're hoping then that those kids who have been here for the year will really then become the leaders of the students coming in. And we won't be the only ones as administrators enforcing it. We encourage our older kiddos to, tell the little ones, no, sit still, or, here, let me help you. So it's not just a top down. It's we're all with one another reinforcing those rules that have make it a safe place for everyone.
But I can imagine this has been therapeutic for you, because I know you had the student die, and I know that was hard on the students, hard on the staff to have that happen out front. And I know there's optimism with the renovation. I'm not going to go too deep in the weeds on that, but it's got to be therapeutic where there are so many forces that District 186 in Springfield can't control the problems kids have, and to be able to do something immersive and be more impactful and be able to be more helpful per student.
Yes, it is very true. And I'll tell you, sir, though, my heart still bleeds a little orange and black for Lanphier's sake. And there was a couple different days when I had off here and I went up to visit, because I still have great teacher friends up there. And I just, one day I got to pray outside the school with some of the other teachers just because of all the crazy stuff kind of going on still. And just to bolster them up, I have I have a care for all of our teachers and all of our, whatever positions it is, whether it's private, public, homeschool, co-ops. I think that we've got great people in all different places. And if this school works for these kids, then great. But if it's not a good fit, there's lots of other folks out there too. They're still doing a great job. Harder situations, but still doing good work.
And I know the tough thing to do at a Lanphier or some of the neighboring schools here publicly is to, there's that student who, if you can give them individual attention, it can be a game changer. I know I see it over in the Litchfield schools, what they've done with Camp Panther, where these kids all of a sudden they're over the summer and they don't feel like, there's someone who, who's so good at this course that I'll never be any good. And they, the self-esteem, academic confidence, whatever you want to call it, suffers. But it just seems like you really have a chance to take a kid who's struggling academically or otherwise and change course.
Well, and I will tell you too, sir, for example, one of the little guys that came to us, he learned how to speak during COVID, and his teacher and people had masks on. He didn't move his mouth because he didn't know he was supposed to move his mouth. So he gets here and we're like, why does he talk like that? Well, then when you delve in and you find out kind of where he started to learn how to talk and form words, it was watching people who had masks on. And so, again, like you said, we are sitting down with these kids individually and finding what are their deficits, and we're able to immediately bring some kind of a remedy to it, and then they can fly once they get that little piece. Just incredible what, a daily for a week or two, centering in on that one issue, then all of a sudden the doors open lots of different ways for them.
And I hear that, and I hear a mixture of a school, and it almost sounds like a mechanic shop, like you pull each student into the bay and run the codes, see where they need help, and it's got to be a fascinating and really gratifying situation.
It really is. It really is. And it's not to say there haven't been some ups and downs, and there's some jerk starts on things, and we have a faculty meeting every Friday after school where we just get together and what went well and what can we do better next week. And again, I think it's that tightness of the faculty to some extent too. We're all saying and doing the same thing that you and I both know. Mom and Dad are saying the same thing. The kid can't get away with too much, right? That's another piece here too that I think just makes this such a strong place in some kind of ways like that. And then I'll tell you, sir, we are Christians, and we believe that the Lord leads, and we lean on Him, and we know it isn't us. And praying for these students daily, and for the Lord to intervene, and then He gives us wisdom. And so that's another precious part of this whole thing too. And even we had those fires in California, and I got an email, and I asked my kids in my high school. I said, "Hey, do you mind if we just stop a minute and just really pray for those folks?" And they're, "Oh yeah, let's do it." So we're not trying to be a group that no one can be a part of. We're in this with others, and we want anybody and everybody who needs. We'd love to have any kid we take them all, and also, we'll help with finances too. If parents want their child here, we would love to have them, and we'll see what we can do to help make that happen for them. We have scholarships and different things, because it's funny, because even in the church, there's so many older members that are saying, what can we do to help? Tell us where to write the check.
I know early on, versatility's got to be everything. You mentioned that, I think, earlier, that, from an instructor perspective, there's a lot of versatility in play.
And the other thing I will say, too, we have a classical education system in play, too. And that classical education is just so top-notch in light of the type of books that we want our students reading, the type of literature that we're having them engage with, the type of structured learning. First they learn this piece, and then we add on to it this and this and this. And so I have a math background, but the literature that I'm teaching these students, I love it. It's so solid. It's the wrong is wrong and the right is right. It's not this, and there's not, I don't know, we've got so much literature out there, especially in the high school, that is there's classics out there, and they're classics for a reason. And that's what we are spending our time with. Where, even in like my biology class, the students made a model of a cell, and then they were putting in all the pieces inside that cell, the mitochondria and the ribosomes, and they were using things from the art room. And now they are, I'll have them tell me, I'll point to a thing, and they'll have to tell me what it is and what its function is. So it's trying to make it very hands-on-y, but also very, they're learning it as they're doing it along the way too. And they're doing some recitation. And we have, our kids are always standing up in front of the class and sharing things. And in the literature in the high school, they had to learn a part of a poem and stand up and just recite it. So it's just, and our high school are doing projects every quarter also. And so each one of there's only 3 projects they have to do per quarter right now. And it has to relate to something of that topic, like of Renaissance, which is we're studying in history. A couple of the girls are making Renaissance dresses. One of the boys off of Rote made a model of Chichen Itza, which is one of the wonders of the world, and gave a report on that. One of our students is very involved, loves science and that kind of stuff, and she made a picture of the human body, and it was this board that, as you open it, like on the outside is a picture of a person, and then you open it, and then you get all the muscles, and then the next one opens up to all the bones, and then it opens up again and all the organs, and then she gave a presentation on it, and we presented it to our younger children in the school last couple Fridays ago now, and they got to ask questions. There's just lots of really neat things going on. And then our littles are doing something similar to that. We call it a sponge room, and they get to bring some things they'd like to learn more about. And one of our young men, he made a rocket type of a thing, I think. Another little student wanted to make a model of the sun and the moon and another planet, and, made it out of paper mache or something like that. So it's just, we are, I don't know if you remember being a kid and going, well, why does it do that? And instead of just going, well, we don't have time for that, we have this curriculum we have to cover. Okay, let's go explore. Let's go find out. I mean, we still, our bread and butter in the morning is, math and English and grammar. But in the afternoon, we've got a lot of leeway for discovering and learning and growing. And the kids love it. They are just really excited about it.
I imagine in the situation here, electronics and having digital media and not having to deal with what would be some awkward or complex, however you want to put it, economic issues if you had to just rely on textbooks. I imagine it really has helped open the door to making this work.
Yes. And we have, like our high school kids, they're supposed to put their electronic, not even bring it to school if you don't really feel like you need it. And if they bring it, we put them in the offices. And then we do have Chromebooks available for our older kids. And in our sponge room, we have a Chromebook available if they need to do some research as they're looking at, something they're wanting to create. But yeah, the technology is just, it's wonderful not being so dependent upon it. It seems as if that was so huge in my other schools that I was so involved with. Because ultimately, sir, from my years of teaching, you get a teacher in there who loves what they love and has a good understanding of the information, and a kid who wants to learn. That's all you need. The books are kind of on the sidelines, and technology's on the sidelines. If people know what they know, they can communicate to kids if they want. The good rapport between each other, too. That's what, these kids know that their teachers are for them. We love our kids. We teach them well. We engage in their lives. I know we've done a lot of different home visits at different times. And, again, we have such few kids, but I would really love to see that continue on. And we invite the families in. We ask them to come and do some helping for us, too. But we had, right at Christmas time, we did a thing right at the end of the school year, and we invited the parents, and we had, games and a Christmas play and decorating cookies. And so the parents, it's just great. Everybody's involved, and there's just a great interaction between everybody.
Well, I look at this, and I think anybody who's passionate about their craft is fascinated with how they did it in the past. Like, I'd love to, go back in time to when they were playing the first Beatles songs, or when radio stations had bands. I'd love to just do a little time travel. And I have to think, there's a fascination, with a one-room schoolhouse. Now, this is obviously different than the one-room schoolhouse, as far as that was an era where you were fighting to get kids literate and everything else. But as far as that intimacy, I imagine that it's kind of a neat thing, even though I'm sure, having some bigger enrollment goals on the drawing board for the long term.
Right. But I do, it's funny because I think that we have thrown out so much of the baby with the bathwater sometimes with those older things, because we're so new and, we're on the cutting edge, and yet there was a lot of reasons why people did what they did at different times during that time. Because even we say, just sit and listen, be involved in that. If you hear the elders doing it, then maybe the littles would want to, they look up to them. And that's what happened in the one-room schoolhouse was, even though the littles were maybe working on their ABCs, well, maybe the older kids were doing history and English and biology, and the littles were listening, going, I can't wait to be in there. And my dad came from that kind of situation, and he had to step away when he was in junior high to help support the family on the farm. And such a different mentality that education was a privilege, not, I have to go to school. It's funny, when we did that, when we've had some of these different events here at the school, we've told the parents, since they were here anyway, because some of them live farther away, if they wanted to take their son or daughter, at noon or 1 o'clock after we did our production or whatever, they could. But we were going to have school for the rest of the day for a few that could live farther away. And the kids would say to their parents, we want to stay. And the parents were like, who is this kid that wants to stay at school? So it is just so sweet again, I think it's just that they found a place where they feel very safe and secure and accepted. And I would say, too, the other thing that we're helping in our world right now that's kind of one of the deficits is after that 2020, many of these kids come from so many different situations, from homeschooling to online learning, that they don't know how to socially interact with one another. And it's not even just the 2020. I think it's also the TikTok and all that kind of stuff, where it's all this online interaction. One of our students in particular, the parents specifically sent them here, and they're like, please help my student learn how to interact with others. So I think that's another huge piece, that we can't just be a classroom. We have to be a place that is also really engaging and listening and seeing one another for human beings that we are,
First Baptist Church, I can imagine, is certainly a good source of students, where it all began. But how does your student body break down? Is it outside the church, outside the city limits? How does that work?
Right. So we have Pastor Jason, who's the headmaster. He has 3 children that attend here. And then one of our teachers, who is a member of the church, she has 2 sons that come here. So that's 5 of the 17, 18 students that we have currently. So we have quite a few from the Litchfield area. There's kids from Hillsboro that are over here, and I think there's another community that we pull from too. So, yeah, quite a few from outside.
What are you seeing as far as inquiries and just awareness of this brand new brand in the area?
Well, so it's interesting. I think that because we were just kind of trying to get it up off the ground, we didn't spend too much time marketing ourselves. And so we blew up Facebook and sharing on there, but you've got a lot of folks who are not necessarily Facebook people. And the church itself, they don't realize all it says is First Baptist Church. It doesn't say Litchfield Christian School on the outside of our building. I think, again, still there's many in Litchfield that don't even realize that we exist. So we're creating some banners that we're going to try and get out front, and having some, individual yards, my student attends LCS. But I think that's an area where we're needing to continue to grow in and start really putting out the word. But although people have trickled in because they've just been looking for alternatives and kind of at their wits' end, and excited when they find that we are here and that we are offering not just, K through 8, but K through 12, that their son or daughter can jump in and get a full, high school education here. And we're working towards the accreditation. We have to get a year under our belt before we can start really working on that process. But we've already contacted the place that we're going to do that with, and they are on board and really excited about having us join them. So,
where can folks find out more, or how can they find out more about Litchfield Christian?
Working on getting a better website up. We had one originally started, and then someone else was helping us do it, and then they stepped away, and then we couldn't make changes on it. So, but I think by the end of this week or next week, we're going to have that new one up and running. So that's one place. Calling the church phone number here, that's another place that people could get information. But we would really love, more than anything else, for people to come and visit. And we have a chapel day on Wednesdays at 10:45. The community and anybody is invited to, and it just gives them an opportunity to get a feel of the place. Because, everybody's got in their head, if you say public, oh, that's what public is, or, Christian school, oh, I know about that. Well, no, you don't, because everybody's a little bit unique and different, and we love to be able to show the energy in our building and just the difference that we kind of bring to the educational process that maybe they hadn't thought of or seen.
Thanks to Rebecca Wallner for joining us on another edition of The Forum on WSMI. We'll see you again next weekend for an edition of Around Montgomery County on WSMI.